And also with the like sometimes with the complicated asanas or the again like advanced that you need to walk students through step by step. I usually show it, and I, of course, in the class, I set up the class to actually prepare to this advanced pose. And now what I do, I don't allow anybody to do a whole group. They don't start together to do anything. I go one by one next to each of them. Of course, it's in person practice. Of course, that online you can't do such a
Yeah.
thing. But I go one by one each of them and then put them into the pose, support them.
In the first
Then,
classes.
hmm?
In the first classes. In the first classes, like while you build the pose, while you build the
uh,
asana.
yes, when they actually practice this asana first time,
Mm.
exactly. So that, or they have fear to go
Mm.
into that asana. So it's always good, some for some people again it's easy, and the others watch, and as they watch, they learn even more.
Mm.
What points needs to be
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
focused on, and what they need to be careful for. So it's very good, and I really enjoy it. Actually, it's very very nice.
Ah, yeah. You know what? The only thing, everything makes sense and everything is understandable. But I've been once in a yoga class, and the teacher was actually, because you mentioned about chakras and stuff, and she was actually saying something like, you have a cord on the what's the top chakra,
Crown chakra.
the crown chakra, and it's pulling you up. I was like, which one is that one? Because obviously, like, okay, I like yoga and I do yoga, but I'm not familiar with chakras, and I'm not familiar with, like,
Mhm.
if you just go to a yoga class and you don't have experience about chakras, and you don't have experience of strange ways of saying certain parts of the body, that can be really frustrating, because
Mhm.
then you totally lose your focus trying to look others what they're doing just to figure out which one is the crown chakra, or which one is the root chakra, or which one is
Of course.
the. So it makes total sense, that point.
Yes. In the verbal instruction, basically, it has to be very simple.
Mm.
And I even don't encourage that the new teachers use the Sanskrit name of the asanas. No
Mm.
need. And also, yes, that kind of instruction is not very
Sorry for
usable.
disturbing, but I think, like, if you're doing like a yoga class to people, to basic people, like everyday people, they are not gonna understand
The Sanskrit.
Sanskrit. They're gonna be like, what is she
No,
talking
exactly.
about? Like,
Exactly.
I mean, in English, like down facing dog, it makes sense. You kind of
Hmm.
get it, but then all the other
Mm.
strange name is all difficult to understand, and it confuses you a little bit, and maybe you try to remember it, and you kind of lose the focus of all of it.
Well,
So.
exactly. I think that's why I don't encourage
Mm.
people to, new teachers to actually use this, because, to be honest, it's for the teacher that's
Mm.
saying, I know it. And you know.
Yeah, but no one else cares if you know the name or
This is
not.
the thing, especially beginners class, that they don't need to hear this. They are already very busy with
Trying
their
to.
body and their mind and all this emotion, all the feeling on the mat and trying to follow up. They don't need this, to be honest. So it's a simple, clear instruction, short, not too much talk. Yes, sometimes we have to give details,
Mm.
but the details shouldn't also anatomic way that, okay, you can use few anatomic, words, but that the person, or the class understand.
Mm.
That's fine. But going into so much of the technical part of, you can just say your wrist instead of like talking about the bone name, like,
Mm.
or the joint name or whatever. There's no need, because that, as you say, it's like a Sanskrit. It confuses the people unless they are actually studied health, doctor or nurse or anything like that. So this is not good. And also, of course, chakra things. What was it? What was writing and
Uh,
saying you can add the chakras?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But it's like sometimes people prefer, you know.
Ah.
It's not that you have to. It's like, let's say you're teaching to a class for 1 year, and then those people, of course, you know,
I'm
you
more
taught a
familiar.
lot, and you know, they know, they came to the workshops, they understand, they studied, and then of course you can talk about a little bit, but it doesn't have to be chakra. Anything you want to mention, let's say that was the case, I think, in the paper. So let's say you instruct the person first, that's the priority. And when the group or the, you know, people or the one person actually into the main asana and can stay there for some breaths, then you can talk about the details. This details could be also about body, that their body, you know, details of the body. Like let's say in downward facing dog, you push your heels down, you know, pull your abdomen in, and you know, shoulders rotating externally, and all these details you can give even more. Or even you can talk about more details, like, you know, let's say
Health benefits, maybe.
health benefits, exactly, or like how whole body works in downward facing dog, and how each part of the body and the muscles actually in harmony. If they are in harmony in the posture, then there is not too much weight on the arms. Arms wouldn't hurt too much, you know, or it doesn't hurt too much on the legs, you know. Just balancing how it comes to body, basically.
Different point, but it came to my head. Like, I was trying to visually put myself into teaching a class, and I realized that I do this mistake because I want people to do it right. I was talking a lot. And I've noticed that in when you teach, you don't say much. You say do down facing dog, and then when people are in the down facing dog, you start saying, okay, now heels down, now abdomen in, now this and that. I'm gonna be like this and this and this and this and that from the beginning, and I think that will totally confuse people because it will be too much information. And it's, I think that's how you recognize an experienced teacher maybe from a not so experienced one, because I try to give all the information from the beginning so someone can fully practice the pose from day zero. But you have the experience to say, like, okay, you tried this, now try and do heels down, for example, or bend your knees a little bit if it feels not bad. And I would be like, no, wait here, you know, shoulders back, heels
Yeah,
down, and push, and like,
yeah, of course.
so that's kind of important to remember, that you should not push someone to the point that, you know, your perfectionism, for example, goes into
No,
this person and be like,
please no. No, yeah.
yeah,
But
no,
I
it's just
understand, of course, it's like the also inspiration to, you know, I'm teaching and let's do it right, you know. But actually, what is good again to remind as a new teacher to ourselves that this is not one day practice, and this body is not gonna change in one day,
yeah,
in 1 hour, you know. So we have to, as a teacher, we have to understand that every class something else be correct in the same person, because it is too much for the individuals to try to do everything in one class,
yeah,
and it's not normal, it's not natural, you know. It comes already with the practice as you continue, as you regular. So as a teacher, let's say most of the time I see that student, okay, you know, one part they get, let's say the person, specific person, shoulders corrected, but like on the talking about downward facing dog, but the legs not really having the right action. It's a practice. Shoulders great, but they weren't right. Now they are. So it's gonna be also going right way to the legs as well with the practice. No, not in one day. But of course we have big part in this process. So with the if the person is comfortable with the hand adjustments, That makes such a big difference for the individuals to understand what's the correct,
Mm.
being correct, or in the posture, or in the alignment of the posture, so using the correct alignment, what does it mean that they then feel it in their body, then it's easier for them to do it later on. That's why I do actually very much like hands-on correction. But of course, it's also important that the student
Allow it.
okay with it, they feel comfortable with it. So verbal correction also good. It's usually again important to make it clear. And as you said, like go to downward facing dog. Okay, everybody knows downward facing dog. But what happens that if they don't know at all, and you have to put them into downward facing dog, and 3 times, 5 times, and now they know, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then when you say downward facing dog, you don't have to talk about lots of stuff. They go to it.
Yeah.
But then, of course, then you talk about more detail about the how to be in downward facing dog, because everybody can do downward facing dog. But then, what's the alignment of this? Is it correct? Can it be improved in a certain
That's what
body?
that's what I don't understand. Like, for example, last time that we did the class on at the beach, I know there's one of my friend. I know that she has a lot of potential, but I saw her that she was not going to her full potential,
Mm-hmm.
and like because I know her, I know what she can do. But I didn't see her going there. How do you know when someone has reached the level that you can say, okay, now maybe we can push a little bit more? Like, how can you notice on someone that, okay, now the hands, for example, are ready to take more, or the
Well, I think as you teach,
you get experience.
you kind of pick up from the bodies, and as you practicing as well, lots of knowledge in the practice itself. And then when you observe the students, this is the other thing actually I wanted to mention. When you teach, I don't prepare the script to tell in the class. I look at the class.
Mm.
I look at the students, because as a teacher, we already know the alignment, the practice, what practice does, and what's the modifications, and all of this, right? When you look at the class, when you look at the students, and then you can see which way you need to guide them, what's missing in their posture, what is not clear, or where the corrections needed. And then you talk. Then it's not that you memorize something, or you just like say those things in each class. You actually look at the students. The class itself can tell you what you have to talk about, right?
Okay.
So in this case, when you observe constantly each class, that you come to the understanding that maybe this person has the potential to go more, but maybe mentally no. So today, leave this person alone. Yeah. And sometimes it's like the person, actually, there is fear, can go, but there is fear. So you support that person, encourage that person to go a little more, a little bit. And then it's much better for the person. That person can see that it's possible, it's something else. But of course, for this, good observation necessary, and lots of practice of teaching, because everybody talks, everyone's body talks. Body tells you what what's all about. And how, I don't mean only physically, but mentally as well. You can see what's there also mentally, emotionally state, basically.
For example, I'm going again back to the beach lesson. In that case, do you think it would be better to teach first only the modification, or Like you say, this is a modification, for example, and then you say for those of you who are a little bit more advanced, you can do that as well, like the full posture.
Well, I would definitely give
Mm.
variations of the pose, because I wouldn't call it modification. I
Ah,
will say this option, that option.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I always try to avoid that advanced and beginner,
Ah,
or that kind of titling, because especially some people, it doesn't sound good for them, and
mm,
then some people actually try harder to apply the advanced pose, but maybe that's not good for them, and then you have to warn that person,
mm.
and that person gets annoyed because you put them back to the beginners
Yeah,
level of
I see, okay.
modification, and
True.
then it's like there is an extra struggle for the individual in the class
Mm,
mentally, no need. So it's important how we present those things. Advanced doesn't mean that you are physically very advanced, for me, my opinion. Advanced means for me that you have great knowledge about your body and you know where to step back,
mm,
when to step back, and when to step forward, when to stop,
mm,
you know, basically. So I respect the more respect the students more when they actually have knowledge of this and they take action for this. Let's say maybe I am pushing too much whole class because its energy is so high and the one person wants to rest. That's it, you know. I
mm,
respect to that fully. It doesn't mean that it's not strong enough, or not flexible enough,
mm,
or this is actually the wisdom
mm.
I see, because that person knows when to stop,
When to stop? Okay,
and that's important.
nice. I really liked the what you said before about not having a specific routine,
Mm-hmm.
not going with a specific routine in mind. It actually makes sense because you might see that, for example, some days, I don't know, it's full moon and people are like more more bloated or something, and
Yeah, true.
but then that means that you have so much knowledge of what of how to put like a lot of asanas together in order to create a routine for the whole body without, you know.
Preparing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this comes with the practice of teaching, of course.
Mm.
In the first 2 years of my life, teaching life, I was making the
Mm.
plan. It's not that I plan to say what exactly every class, but of
Mm.
course there was the asana plan, and then I had like roughly we'll say this, we'll say that, but then it never goes quite straightforward with the plan as well, because you can see, okay, this group is not really um, ready for this,
Yeah.
or this group's energy doesn't feel quite right for this particular
Mm.
practice now, or particular asana, so you skip them,
Mm.
you add something else in the flow, something else comes and you add that, or you
Okay.
change, or you make it shorter, maybe it's too long for that group, or that kind of stuff. It's like, but you follow your plan first, at least 2 years. I
Mm.
think it's good practice to prepare beforehand,
Okay.
and then it should be like, I'm not talking about teaching once a month 2 years. I'm talking about
Yeah.
actually pretty, like at least 2 times a week, at least regularly 2 years practicing to plan your teaching and your class. It's important, and all the sequences of the asanas, then you can also, it can make more sense to you also, how you present it to students, how you instruct the students. Does it come right in this way or that way? Lots of process goes on. There is a knowledge and mentally,
Mm.
and then for some people it still could be good to do the plan, you know they like it because it doesn't have to be full plan.
Yeah.
It's just pinpoints, and I know what to teach in this case.
Mm.
And that's, I think, great.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be like, but what I meant more, I mean, of course, now I don't particularly plan. I kind of in my head, okay, what could be done today?
Mm.
And then in the class, I'm looking at the people, okay, how with this group we can work, what's the needs of this group. But again, it can be changing during the practice, you
Mm.
know. But still, like having some kind of idea what you want to teach could be good.
It's important. Yeah.
But what I meant more to looking at the group, I didn't mean the zero idea. I meant you teaching the downward facing dog. Imagine whole class, 5 people, 10 people, actually everybody doing the downward facing dog perfectly in their body in the perfect alignment. Why would you talk
Mm.
about the alignment so much? Yeah. Then you can talk something else for them, maybe.
Mm.
And let's say in again one group, 10 people, some people doing it, um, feet are not quite right. Some people like maybe neck is too active. What are you gonna say? You talk to whole group for these corrections. Then everybody hears. Even those actually doing it correctly, it's good for them to hear.
Yeah.
You know, so you pick up what needs to be changed in every person, and then say it to the class,
Mm-hmm.
so that you instruct whole class for the correction, and those know it also. They also get it even better. But those actually maybe not doing it in a it's difficult for them to be in the wrong position. They have to make more effort for that. So when you talk about that, they can correct, and they are more comfortable. So
Yeah.
that's what I mean. What to teach the group, you observe what's wrong there, you
Yeah.
know, and you see, let's say, a person placing the foot on the knee in the tree pose, and then you say to whole class. You don't only say to that person,
Yeah.
you know,
Okay.
but you say that we don't place the a foot to the knee, below the knee or above the knee. And this is the instruction goes on,
Mm.
because you are constantly in connection with the group. You constantly observe. I don't know if it was in your paper, but I want to mention in one class, basically as a teacher, we have to see everybody in every pose. Everybody in every pose. So that's like full, you have to be in that spot 100%
Mm.
to be able to fully teach this class. So it's not, there is no space for walking on your mat and like actually planning what you cook. That's not like this.
Mm.
If you are fully there, you know exactly what to teach because you are in connection with these people.
Yeah.
You see them with your eyes, but you see them even beyond. So then it flows so beautifully. That again comes, it may sound like so, how does it happen? It actually does happen with the teaching practice.
Yeah.
And again, some principles there for me that I make made sure to be there from the very beginning. No phone,
Mm.
you know. So you only there. No even silent or anything. No need to see anything there. You are there and that's it.
Mm.
You are in this class as a teacher. You cannot be busy with anything else. You're busy with the people, with your student here. That's it. And the other thing, you don't do your own practice in the class.
Mm.
It's completely different, different
That was
state.
the strange thing for me. Like, yeah, yeah, I understand. Because your mind has to be busy to correct others, not.
Your mind has to be fully focused on your students.
Mm.
If you start to do your own practice, I mean, you're not teaching a class. You're doing your practice and they are watching you and following you, you know.
Yeah.
This is different. But if you are teaching the class, you got to be there fully. You can show the posture, but you don't stay in the posture like you practice it.
Yeah.
That doesn't work, you know.